Hello and welcome everyone. You are tuned into Sneak Live, where we chat about all things tech, open source, and security. My name is Dirantal. I'm a developer advocate at Sneak, and today I have the pleasure of having Abhay Bhargav from We45, where he was the founder and chief security officer, and he is chief security researcher. Right there, you go.
Yes.
And we are going to chat about some Python secure development guidelines, secure coding practices. Going to show a few tools, show you how to get started with security stuff for Python developers. If you're just like figuring things out, getting started, this stream is just for you. So Abhay, thank you for coming. What's up? How's it going?
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It's going well. Staying at home, staying safe, hoping to travel sometime soon. But other than that, it's going pretty well. Yeah, can't complain.
Nice, nice. Things are getting a bit better on your end as well. All the situation stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So from most of the vaccination stuff we've covered and stuff like that. So yeah, things are definitely getting better. Hopefully, we're looking up for 2022, especially in terms of being able to move around. So yeah,
Same.
definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, same. I mean, plans are getting together for a lot of events in person coming in. So, I mean, hopefully we get some time to meet up, maybe in the next OWASP stuff. Yeah, I'm all
Yeah,
right there with you.
yeah.
All right, buddy. So, tell us about your background a bit. Introduce yourself. Tell everyone what you're up to. Let's start off with that.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So basically, first of all, my name's Abhay, and I run an application security company called V45. We also have a training online training platform called AppSec Engineer. So I kind of run both these brands as part of my job. I actually had not, I started off my career by not being in IT or information security at all. I started off as an accountant, and as soon as I finished my accounting degree, I realized I wanted nothing to do with finance. So, which is why I jumped into IT security, and I really enjoyed it, and I got good at it. And I worked a couple of years for another company, and then I decided to take the plunge and figure this entrepreneurship thing for myself. And started V45. This was in 2010, and we've been going strong since. We started off as a very generic security company, but over the last few years, especially over the last 5 6 years, we've focused in on AppSec and even more specifically focused in on DevSecOps and cloud native and Kubernetes and so on and so forth. So we've really kind of addressed the bleeding edge aspect of the market. We do a lot of training, so we love new research, new stuff. We are kind of automation freaks over at V45, so we love that as well. So yeah, that's basically what we do, and that's what I do. So I contribute to a lot of this. We do have a bunch of folks doing pen testing within the company, but we do have building and breaking. So you'll see that in my company we have both building stuff and breaking stuff, which is kind of fun. Get both the sides of the coin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
playing both ends, offensive and defensive.
yeah. It's always fun because you get to see. I write a lot of code. I don't do much offensive stuff nowadays. I used to be heavily involved in the offensive stuff, but nowadays I'm more like, hey, how do we automate this? How do we integrate this into a Kubernetes webhook, or how do we integrate this into a CI/CD pipeline? That's really my thing. So I do a lot of work with tools like Snake as well as open source tools like Zap and a lot of tools that I love. I work with, and yeah, this is basically what me and my team kind of do for uh, clients.
And I know you started with saying that you started a career as an accountant and then made
Yeah,
a huge move into security. But if you
yeah.
think about it, Abhay, it's not really that of a huge move, right? It's like still auditing and like it seems like you like to
Yeah.
be in control, making sure everything is ticking off just fine, right?
Okay, yeah, you're kicking off my control obsession here, but yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's really, yeah. A lot of these things are just oversight, right? You want to look for you want to look if things are okay, trust but verify stuff, right? So yeah, absolutely. The good thing is from my background in accounting, I understood business really well, and end of the day, security is all about solving business problems. So I don't see it as a very big thing, but a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, you're an accountant. Why did you get into this?" So just
I love that you
It's
mentioned
bad.
that, because that's also like with security, right? Like even on the defensive side, this is mostly about managing risks and
Yeah,
knowing like what is possible to lose, what is not, like balancing. Because like if you wanted to make everything super secure, whatever, you just tell everyone disconnect from the internet, whatever. But you can't do that, right? You can't do that
yeah.
and run a business. You have to like balance the risks. And I really like that you actually went through that route of like connecting accounting to auditing to business to, hey, you're an entrepreneur. That's amazing. That's like a really big, by the way, jump, like a brave jump making it. So that's awesome.
I was younger and stupider, so yeah, it didn't seem like a big jump back then. Now I wouldn't have probably done that now, but yeah, that time I had nothing much to. I was just like jumped into it. I had nothing much else going on, so I was like, hey, let's give this a shot and see how this
Yeah,
goes. Uh,
that's cool. So what else? What else? We were thinking maybe I'll kind of like pull you on a couple of questions. Kind of like if there's any recent project that you worked on and you wanted to maybe share, and any like predictions or stuff you have for 2022 coming on.
Right. So, in fact, my we recently at V45 had something called a FedEx Day. So it's kind of interesting because we divide the company into teams, and each team has to ship something in 24 to 48 hours. This time we did it 48 hours because we were remote, and it's kind of nice because a lot of creative ideas came out from the team. A couple of projects we're going to be open sourcing pretty soon. One is a Kubernetes threat hunting project where we're actually looking at one of the teams that was working on this was a very good. It was the winning team, by the way. So what they did was they came up with a framework and a tool set that would identify security issues proactively using Kubernetes audit logs. And that was a very interesting approach that they used. And they used, instead of reinventing the wheel, they used existing policy frameworks like Open Policy Agent and Falco and stuff like that. So it was kind of nice. We're going to be open sourcing that pretty soon, probably by December. That is something that we're going to be looking at. I'm a big threat modeling nut, so I have a project already, which is quite popular actually, called Threat Playbook. That's on GitHub. That's a threat model as code framework. That's on GitHub. You can check it out if you want. I'm actually building out the new version right now, which is going to be using a graph database because I love graph databases and I like connecting the dots with edges and nodes. So I feel that graph databases are awesome for security modeling and threats, especially. And it kind of you are able to get this database relationship without doing a ton of queries. You're able to figure relationships out a lot better. So I'm rewriting the framework with a graph database and a better front end and better CLI. Last CLI I was kind of happy with. It was definitely better than the previous one. I wrote it in Go. This time, also, I'm going to write the CLI in Go, but the API is still going to be in Python, which is making a lot of improvements to it. So these are the two big projects. And other than that, of course, we do a lot of new labs and stuff like that as part of AppSec Engineer, which is our training platform. That is something that we constantly keep adding to. We're launching a whole bunch of new courses next week on Azure and stuff like that. So that's stuff that we are doing, at least from projects that you can publicly see and that we can talk about without an NDA. So yeah, this is stuff that we are publicly doing. So yeah, this is fun stuff that we like to do.
Nice. Looking forward for that open source surprise you're planning for us. Is that going to be I guess, a Christmas gift to everyone on open source, right? So you're gonna launch
Yeah.
it.
But probably, yeah, it will probably be till Christmas. It's still not in a very good shape yet. We need to write good documentation for it, and I think the team is planning a lot of different things. So since we're kind of busy with Q4, we thought of launching it in October, but just didn't happen. It was just it's way too much. Was slammed. Probably going to be December before we can get it out on GitHub and for people to start using it. Because end of the day, open source project is only successful if you have good documents and if you're able to give it if it works right off the bat. Because a lot of times open source tools are great, but you have to you have to do 3,000 things. You have to jump through hoops and run through fire and do all of those things before you can get it working, and it's sometimes not worth it. So we're hoping that that does not happen with this one. So yeah, we're looking forward to this one.
Cool, cool. Same here. So, any predictions for 2022? What's looking for us?
Predictions. I think after 2020, none of us is in a position to do any kind of predictions anymore. But nevertheless, I'm
It's
going to try and keep my
unnecessary.
predictions to the non-public health side of the fence. But yeah, so the way I see it, I think one of the things that I'm seeing. One of the things that I feel that people in security don't do, and I like to do in some cases, is that I follow the developers. Right? So whatever developers do are doing, security is kind of 2 to 3 years behind it. So that is just my. You can obviously argue on the timeline, but I feel that sometimes we see this big gap between the most advanced development teams versus the most advanced security teams. So I've
Yeah,
generally seen that happen.
adoption
So
of tools and practices,
yeah,
ecosystem, everything, right?
exactly. Yeah. So I'm seeing that, of course, the JavaScript ecosystem is as strong as ever. I think I don't need to tell you about it. You are probably more dialed into that system than I am. I think the JavaScript ecosystem is as strong as ever. I think we're going to see a lot more. Definitely a lot more impetus being, especially on the security side, impetus being given to SBOMs and source code analysis, source composition analysis, sorry, not source code analysis. I think, especially because of the whole executive order and stuff like that in the US, I think a lot of the supply chain will start to, which is good, which I think is always good to see. Other than that, I think cloud on the cloud side, we are starting to see more attacks emerge, especially the Azure vulnerabilities that were discovered like a month back. I think were like a big wake up call for me, because they're like, oh my god, these are pretty huge issues that can affect a massive. So I think community or ecosystem attacks are probably going to become bigger. In fact, I even saw that in Mark Dowd's. I agreed with it heartily. Of course, it was. I think he phrased it much better than I'm going to phrase it. But he, in his keynote at, I'm not sure if it was Offensive Con or one of those conferences, he said, I think it was Hack in the Box, Singapore. So he said that ecosystem attacks are going to be big, because they're going to attack an entire ecosystem, because that way they get more bang for their buck. Just like all of our businesses, attackers are also looking for ROI, and ecosystems give them the ROI. I think the latest UA parser.js in npm just gives you an idea of these kind of
Yeah,
ecosystem
just
attacks.
happened, right?
Yeah, just happened before we were, yeah, probably a couple of days before we are talking, this is happening. So I think this is going to be a thing that's going to keep happening, and I don't think we're going to see. I don't think this is going to stop anytime soon. It probably is going to morph into something else. But I think Kubernetes is going to get a whole lot more attacked next year, especially because a lot of people are blindly going in the Kubernetes. They're drinking the Kubernetes Kool-Aid, which is okay. But drinking the Kubernetes Kool-Aid is perfectly fine. But I think a lot of them don't realize the security complexity that comes with that ecosystem, right?
Yeah,
It's you need to
basically.
understand it. Sorry.
I mean, just didn't want to interrupt you, but like just saying, basically maintaining that whole size of like a lot of services, tools, APIs running around, and that's like a lot of work.
No, absolutely. Which is why you're already starting to see namespace as a service vendors and all that appear. Like Octeto and stuff like that. The whole complexity of managing a Kubernetes cluster is kind of like managing your own cloud, which a lot of people are not ready for yet. So I think we're going to see a whole lot of that getting worse before it gets better. I don't know whether that is going to happen just over the next year are probably going to continue. But I think these things, I think we're going to see a lot of these things. I think more cloud attacks, more ecosystem attacks, definitely more Kubernetes attacks. But on the positive side, I think definitely 2020, 2021 has been like pretty huge awareness years, I think, across the board, I think, which is good. Uh,
Gotcha.
I think everybody's understood, yeah, yes, especially after solar winds and stuff like that. People like suddenly, oh my god, this is real, this is big.
The supply chain,
Anyway,
the supply chain is real.
yeah, yeah, it is absolutely. There are so many elements of supply chain that if you just look at your own small app, you'll probably realize that there are probably 50 things in there that you just know nothing about, or probably even more. But I'm just going on the lower side here. This really, the depths of it is just getting huger and huger now with containers, and you have your cloud supply chains, you have your client side supply chains, and it's a pretty it's all a bunch of dominoes that
There's a
hopefully
lot.
you can get a control of sometime soon.
Cool, cool. So I want to get us started with learning about secure Python development. Let me get that banner off. And you're going to share some stuff, right? We're going to dive
Yeah,
into some of this. Okay, cool. Let me get your screen in there. Here we go. Okay, so
right.
just
Yeah,
dive
so go
into
ahead.
it.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I did have a couple of demos set up. I think I've already used Snick. In fact, I wrote an article for Snick a while back on the poetry integration that you folks had built not too long ago, I think. So there was some work that I did on that front. Poetry is so basically Python. The One of the things that you should know as a Python developer is that the package management ecosystem is kind of crazy, right? Because it's there is a little bit of control happening now with poetry coming in, but the standard pip and pypy is not as mature as you would see with node package manager or rust or something like that. I think Python has a big way to go in terms of securing its package management ecosystem. So as a Python developer, that's my biggest concern, that's my constant concern, because for me, the packages that I use, it's very hard to track unless I'm using a modern package manager like Poetry, which is also fraught with issues because Poetry is again using the same underlying infrastructure, so it suffers from some of the same legacy inherited issues that the standard cheese shop, the Python cheese shop. Suffers from. So, from that perspective, you will see that Python package management is definitely something that is needs a lot of work. And of course, the standard going from Python 2 to Python 3, that itself kind of set the whole language back a little bit because a lot of people were not ready for it. We ourselves had to move like a ton of our code base from Python 2 to Python 3, and that was not a painless transition. So personally, I wish they had not done it, but I understand why they did. But it was a lot of pain. And I think there's going to be a pretty huge market, just like you have with COBOL and stuff like that, where people will still maintaining Python 2 code bases for God knows how many years to come. But anyway, that's about the ecosystem, at a high level. For me personally, what I like is that there are a lot more tools today in the Python ecosystem that can address this issue quite comprehensively. So one, of course, Snick has definitely, I think you folks have taken a pretty good analysis of this. You've got a good read on the package management ecosystem. Definitely that is something that I appreciate and I use quite a bit myself. So basically today I have two projects basically, and we'll look at Snick code, and we'll also look at the Snick source composition analysis engine that I use the most. Snick code is something that I'm not fully utilized yet, but this is something that we can also look at. So this is let me just quickly get started with my demo. I have a couple of demos. So first of all, I have an app, the threat modeling as code project that I'm building that I'm running with a newer package manager called Poetry, and I'll talk about that a little bit, right? So basically, when you work with any Python project, in a bare bones Python project, you're typically working with something like this, right? I'm just going to show you this project. So this is called vulnerable Flask app. So you cannot expect anything secure from this app, as you can pretty much imagine. So if you see, most of the time you'll see that you are dealing with a file that looks like this, like requirements.txt. That's what you're typically dealing with. 99% of the time, that's what you're dealing with. So if you look at how this is, this is a little sparse, right? So if you look at requirements.txt itself, and you just let's cat this, and if you cat this, you'll see that you're just dealing with this, right? Just a massive list of everything that's there. Sometimes, of course, you'll have conflicts here because one of these libraries will probably be using another library that is in conflict with another library, and so on and so forth. So those are things that constantly happen when you are getting into when you are running Python package management. So that's one of the challenges that you'll regularly face. So this is the old school. This is the standard. In fact, most of us still use requirements.txt. And when our newer fancy package managers don't work, we still kind of go back to this. So this is kind of terra firma as far as Python developers are concerned, right?
This is basically
So
like a package JSON for developers from JavaScript, right? This is the dependencies you have and the ranges or the exact versions that you want to power your project with.
yeah,
Requirements.
usually the exact versions are not even there in most projects. You just have like, hey, Flask and Django, and a lot of people. It's the equivalent of the at latest in Docker, right? It's just the
That's
just
got it. So it just means you get the latest. Just fetch
yeah.
whatever. Okay, that's a pain. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pain, and which is why the Python community, I think, doesn't realize how badly they might be affected by dependency confusion attacks, because this stuff is this unless you are very clear in the way you do your tooling, and you have very clear checks in place for your tooling,
Yeah.
you are going to you're going to definitely mess this up. There's a lot of chance for you to shoot yourself in the foot with this stuff, right? So this is, of course, I have Snick set up as part of this. So just quickly run Snick, and of course, this is a vulnerable project, so don't expect too much happening from here. You're not going to see. You're going to see some horrible security results from this, which is so. If you do Snick test, so Snick test is probably going to be here. Yeah. So Snick test. So Snick test is. I like the fact that you can just run it and it tries to figure out what package manager that you have. Of course, you can also refer to it specifically, and then it can query it and then tell you what it has, and of course, even push that. So this is kind of nice. So this gives you all of the issues, and you'll see there are a whole host of issues, which is not surprising because this project is a really, really old project, and it has not been fixed in any way. It is called vulnerable Flask app for a reason. It is super vulnerable in more ways than one. So this is definitely one of those projects that I work with a lot, especially when I demo how things are bad and how you should not be using these things, right? So this is one of those things that I demo quite a bit. So beyond this, the newer one, which is basically poetry. Now, poetry, of course, you have newer ones, which is pipenv. You have poetry. I also remember seeing something else, but I don't recall the name. I've not used that other. There's supposed to be one more Python centric package manager product or package manager app or product, which is supposed to be there, but I personally have not used it. I know of these two, which is poetry and poetry and pipenv. So I'm going to go over to my other project, which is Threat Playbook, and this is the one that I'm building. This is the threat modeling as code project. It's also an open source project, and I'm making a lot of changes to this project right now as we speak. Now, this project is very different from the previous one because here I have used poetry, right? So you
This
see
is
the
still a Python
poetry.log
project.
file. I'm sorry.
So this is still a Python project, but just using a different dependency manager thing.
Yeah, this is using poetry. Yeah, this is a slightly saner way of managing your dependencies, right? Because just like you can do with npm, I think what they've done is they've taken the best of npm and Rust, and they've taken a bunch of different ideas from different places and they've implemented it much better. So they have something called the pyproject.toml, which is their where they have all of their dependencies and their dev dependencies, right? So they have their dependencies and dev dependencies. And just like you see with package lock.json, they also have a lock file, which is good because you have you have the dependency tree, right? So you have the dependency tree for each and every dependency that you have, which is quite
Interesting.
larger. And you have the SHA value and all of that stuff, right? So it is definitely a saner way of managing things. It's definitely a better way of managing things. And it's got some good stuff because with this you can, even if you want to revert to something when you're deploying something, you can do it that way. You can move around with the Python versions a lot more seamlessly with this. So it's kind of nice with Poetry. And Poetry is also supported. In fact, Snick, when they supported Poetry, I was very happy because you can do the same thing here, and it'll automatically figure this out and tell you what vulnerabilities they have. So yeah, you can see that this is kind of not vulnerable, which is awesome on my part. But to be honest, I think this is a very new project, so I'm sure the vulnerabilities are going to creep in as and when things start to change up for us. So yeah, so these are the two ways in which you can do this, right? And of course, you have tooling that integrates with Visual Studio Code. You have all of that stuff, which is always good. But this is, at least from a source composition analysis perspective, I would say definitely this is what I tell all my classes, right? I teach DevSecOps classes quite a bit, and I first tell them, like, get a hold of your inventory, which is basically get your package management straight, right? Now, if you are in the Node ecosystem, that's much easier to do. But if you're in the Python ecosystem or some other ecosystem that is not as conducive to this, you will see that you have to probably make some extra efforts to do it. Today, the good thing is a lot of package managers are trying to take this into account. Or even if the parent package manager or the default language package manager doesn't do it, you have other projects that kind of give you a little bit of sanity angle to this. So it's always good to see that happening. So definitely get your package manager in place first and start to put in some kind of processes around the kind of dependency versions that you have, pegging the dependencies down to as specific a version as possible. That is something that I think would be a good starting point. And once you get to that starting point, then you can start to do your security scanning. You can start to use Snake or some other tool, depending on however you want to handle it. Whatever, even if you're using open source tools or what have you, you can decide to do it. But of course, if you are using Snake, you should be covered because their databases are pretty up to date. So that is something that you can use. So Poetry, and you have the standard cheese shop, which is pip install, and pip it runs on pip. So yeah, I've shown you both viewpoints. I certainly prefer the Poetry variant rather than this, but yeah, this is something that you can decide to do as well. You're muted, Liran.
I am. Thank you. Bye. So I was gonna say, it sounds like Poetry is your favorite tool there. Is that like because it gives you better control of like the log file, the
Yeah.
dependency ping and things like that? Or yeah, is there anything specific, by the way, that is there and not on other ecosystems?
So basically, the way I think the evolution, and I've seen the evolution of the package manager ecosystem here. So there was only pip at the beginning, which is just the standard stuff that
Yeah.
we still use. A lot of us still use pip. I use pip on a daily basis. But what happened was that obviously there was this lack, right? There was this vacuum in the system about the dependencies, the dev dependencies, the very fact that you couldn't separate your prod dependencies from your dev dependencies. All of that stuff started to become a little bit of a problem. So which is where pipenv came out. So pipenv was another project that hoped to solve some of the issues with pip. For a while it did, but I think the maintainer of that project kind of just I think they abandoned the project, or the maintainers didn't do much with it. So I don't see too much development on that project. Poetry, I don't know the maintainers of the project, but I do know that they've taken a leaf out of what pipenv failed to do, and they've also taken ideas from Node and Cargo and Go Mod and all of these different places and implemented something that makes a lot more sense for the Python ecosystem. So that itself is definitely a plus point for it. And from a security standpoint, as a security professional, for me, I like to see specific versions nailed down. I like to see separation of dev and prod dependencies. I like to see version specifications, a proper inventory, right? It may not be an SBOM, but at least a proper inventory. And the
That's cool.
thing
That's
with
awesome.
Poetry is that it has enough tooling, right? So Yard tool, or if you use Cyclone DX or any of these SBOM tools, they pick it up, they are able to figure it out and run with it. So it works. I think it's definitely it has a bright future as far as all of these things are considered. So that's really where I'm coming from.
Got it. Like, is there any? I guess beyond that, is there anything that's like that you've seen impactful in terms of like what's a secure development guidelines or stuff like that for Python developers?
I think Python has gotten, at least what I'm seeing is that even from SAST folks like you or SemGrep or all these folks, what I'm seeing is that Python, because Python has become more a language of frameworks, just like a lot of other languages. I'm not saying Python is the only language like that. But if you see Python, you'll see that it's used for very specific things. It's used for machine learning stuff, or it's used for Django or web development stuff. It's largely seen in these two areas, right?
Right.
Maybe a little bit of IoT development, but by and large, we are seeing these two communities kind of take up the center focus of the Python world. So either you're data science, so you're doing a lot of work in data science, you're using scikit-learn, pandas, keras, what have you, or you're doing web development with Django, Flask, whatever, right? So I'm seeing that building framework centric security tools in Python makes a lot more sense, and is making a lot more sense for the community rather than generic language SAST or SAST, especially when you're looking at SAST. Rather than generic language SAST, I see that this is definitely making a lot more sense. We're using more framework specific stuff. And of course, so there's data science, there is web development, then today there's also cloud development, right? So if you're on Amazon or if you're on Azure, you have a bunch of Python frameworks that help you, or SDKs that help you support that piece. So I think this is where I'm seeing Python kind of striate, or delineate in terms of the way it is approached. And it's good to see this because okay. Uh, Server side scripting. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Python is really nice to whip up scripts, but the what I'm saying is the large majority of production use cases are either these three things. Yeah, of course, I'm sure there are lots of other things as well, but I kind of see this happening. And from that perspective, uh, I see that a lot of these libraries also have a lot of supply chain issues, right? So, for instance, a lot of these libraries, for instance, read open XML formats, or XLSX formats, or they read these other formats, and a lot of these they use XML parsers under the hood, which is vulnerable to some kind of a XML external entities or some other RCE when you trigger it and stuff like that. So these are the kind of inherited risks that you're also seeing, right? So PyYAML is one of those libraries that has constantly been vulnerable to something or the other. You've seen that across the board. You've seen that with image processing libraries in Python. You've seen that with crypto libraries in Python. Anything that either has a C library under the hood, or something that interfaces with some lower level C library, I've always seen a lot more issues with the cutting across. So this is the supply chain risk angle that I think a lot of us are subjected to as Python developers. So
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't skip any ecosystem. I mean,
yeah,
Python had this typo squatting and malicious packages as well. I think to one point it was like someone was, what was it, like half a year ago or a year ago, someone was like publishing 3,000 packages at once. All was like typo squatted slash malicious something else.
yeah,
And I mean, it's, you could get sneaky with it. I mean,
yeah,
sneaky in the other tense of it, which is like you could like sneak them in a way, or
yeah,
just slowly and so on, and maybe like they live there. I know some people have actually done that on npm, like they're probably still a package at this point, still alive for like over a year or two, that if you install it, just like it doesn't do anything to like not destroy anyone, but it does being home somewhere, and it gets installs. And I don't mean
yeah,
bots, like it's beyond the 10, 20, 30 downloads that you usually see by bots and stuff like that to track them. And it's, it's, this is the thing, right? This is like supply chain security. This is knowing
yeah.
what to install, how to install. By the way, do you know? Now I'm just thinking about it. Do you know if is it poetry or peep or anything else? That do they have like something? Well, I guess it's questions of two things. Can I, as a package maintainer, run these arbitrary commands like you can with npm when you install it? You can do it, okay,
Yes,
and
yes,
you
yes.
disable it as a developer, like you can with npm.
I am not sure about that, to be honest. I know you can do it, but I'm not 100% sure about whether you can disable it or not.
Right.
Um, I have generally seen that the Python package management setup ecosystem is not as mature as NPM by far. Even anything from typo squatting prevention to I don't even think I'm not sure if the cheese shop has typo squatting prevention controls in place. At the same time, I don't know whether there are ways to block these sort of uh, this execution of scripts once setup.py file is invoked. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I gotta check out. But yeah, it's an interesting, maybe something that they can think about or something that I need to check about, but not aware of whether that's possible or not.
Yeah, I mean, Brian is saying there that it's been a while since they've done Python, and I think like that's kind of like nailing it, right? Like when you don't do it for a bit, maybe like things evolve and the ecosystem kind of continues, but the same principles around security is pretty much the same. It's like those days back in like I was chatting with the team on this like about BBSs and like I don't know 20 years, 25 years back or whatever. That makes me sound old, which I'm not. You're not either. This is not. We're not old, but we've just been in the span. But I mean, back then, when someone would have sent you like I don't know, like an executable, right, like a .exe, you would. I think we were thinking twice, three times, four times, do I want to run it or not, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the exact same thing as today. And
Yeah.
today, when people are saying, type in an npx something command, right? Like it's you're basically arbitrarily shelling out whatever from whoever, and you have no idea what's going on, and that's a bit crazy. So it's
Or you
good to
do
see.
a curl URI pipe sh, right? That's the new hotness with the DevOps tooling world, right? Everybody in DevOps talks about DevSecOps, and then the ready curl whatever URI pipe sh, and I'm like, how is this? How is this?
Why should I
How do
bite it
you?
over to batch? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's as things are getting more convenient, people just of course forget about the some of the key things that makes it what it is. But yeah, this is yeah no this npx stuff is
Yeah.
pretty crazy. And Python has it, and it's actually even less. So NPX you have to explicitly do it, right? So Python you can package it into a setup.py file, so it will automatically run. It's like
Mhm.
automatic arbitrary code execution, so it will run. So I don't think there's a way of disabling it. I'm not 100% sure about this, but as I've written setup files myself and done this myself, I kind of know that I don't think I'm not sure if there is a a standard way of doing this, because in Python you just have to do pip install blah, and you it if there is a code execution stuff, it's just gonna do it. It's gonna do
It's
it.
right.
I don't think there's an optionality factor in there. But yeah,
More things to worry about.
definitely.
Yeah. What else? Abai, do you want to bring up any sneak code related stuff? Do you want to like we can explore it together? As like I know you've kind of like not seen it too much before, or maybe at all. We can take
Yeah,
that new user tour here live and see what did you find in your project.
yes, I'm gonna just put this up on my screen.
Should I go
So
ahead? Let me see.
yeah, you can share it. That's fine. This is just a couple of public projects that I have. So yeah, so the setup process was pretty easy in the sense that all I had to do was connect my GitHub. I just connected a couple of public repos to this. Um, so you see that what I think it is doing. Again, you must correct me because I'm not 100% sure about the code part of it. I have seen the SCA part of it. I've not seen the SAS part of it so much yet. But from what I'm seeing, this is the so you have multiple issues that it's identified. This seems to be the SCA part of it. So it's very
Yeah.
clear here that it is the SCA. All these are libraries that I'm using. and you can see that all of these are pretty bad, as you can.
Outdated. CRLF
Yeah, yeah.
injection. Wow, I haven't seen that in ages. CRLF
This
injection.
CRLF injection is still pretty hot in the bug bounty world. It's I
Really?
see it all the yeah I see a lot of CRLF injections in the bug bounty world. I don't know where it came from, but I see them a lot. I because a lot of my offensive team in the office, they're bug bounty people too, and yeah, I see them kind of trying out all these things and working as well many times. So yeah, so this is. Yeah, so these two are, yeah, this is the Docker container, which is a Docker file that is in the project, which is kind of nice because you get these two things as well. Do you have like the ability to, yeah, it looks like, okay, no known exploit. Yeah, this is something that I'd always like to do, right? Because if a lot of times you can't fix it, there's no known exploit or unfixed, right? There are a lot of unfixed bugs or ignored bugs. So sometimes you might no fix available. So I would definitely enable these two things, and I would look at my container results with a little bit of salt because no fix available. I don't know whether I can even patch it. A lot of times, containers results throw you up a lot of different things. Do you see this kind of being used within SNCC a lot? Do you see this setup used quite a bit? Because I've seen this with other tools. I don't know whether your customers are
In terms
seeing
of
this
what?
one.
What kind of
In terms
setup?
of the no fix available, leveraging that to actually cut through the container dependencies to specific things that they can address.
Oh,
Is
like
that something?
to like prioritize it or something like that?
Not really prioritize it. So one of the things I'm not sure if you've seen Trivi. So Trivi kind of a lot of these container scanning tools. What they do is they throw you a whole bunch of flaws, which is normal because they read the package manager and they reference it back to CVE or their database, and then they throw
Yeah.
a bunch of security flaws. So a lot of cases you will see that there is no fix available or no known exploit. No known exploit not so much of an issue. Definitely no fix available is definitely an issue because you can't really fix it. So are you seeing that that is something that you're filtering by, or are they? Is that something that you see a lot of false positives reported against, or how
Oh,
do
got it.
you?
From users, you mean? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have data on that. Like, that's an interesting question. I think it's a good one maybe to explore in like the state of open source security and stuff like that, because I think that's like an interesting perspective of like how people end up like dealing with those reports. But I think what I can say is we definitely treat them in a way that that kind of like urges you to rather to fix or like urges you to ignore depending on what it is, like, you know, lower the noise level. Like if you scroll up, or let me see if I can find an example. If you like scroll to the top, yeah, and like hover over the score on the right, so you see that there's like a score. So instead of giving you
Yeah.
like a CVSS, which is like you know, it's like a 7 and 8 or 9, you know, a 10, whatever, like, and it's like very, you know, kind of like disconnected from the context of like the vulnerability, but how does it affect the app, or like what's the ecosystem around it, what does it mean? So we create this
Hmm.
score based on like the entire organization, like all the projects that you have in whatever org you're on right now. And
Hmm.
so we kind of like prioritize or create an urgency around what you should fix. So for example, if there's like a mature exploit, if there's like a known exploit, and it's like a high severity, actually there is a fix for it, will actually urge, like, will increase the score, because that makes, because you can fix it. Basically you can like lower the attack surface by basically
Hmm.
fixing it. There's like an exploit, so like why wouldn't you do it? So
Hmm.
that's kind of like, so based on the score is how those vulnerabilities are laid out in the order.
Hmm.
And I mean, there are other things like that we're doing there that I'm not seeing in your results. Let me take off the CRLF thing I was adding before. Let me see what you're saying. Exploit
No,
mature. Yeah,
I've just kind of filtered the no fix available ones, which is what
yeah, just removed it. Yeah.
you.
So
Yeah. So if you see that, you'll see. Yeah. So fixable is actually zero. That's kind of interesting because it's literally nothing that is fixable there. It's only partially fixable or no fix available, which is, and the no fix available is 773, which is a
yeah.
pretty staggeringly large number, which just tells you that I don't think most of these Linux projects are patched at all, if ever.
So which
So
what is it? Can you scroll up to the top? Let's see what is What's the
Yeah, it's like a Debian
Python
Python.
to
It's
Jesse?
a yeah, it's a Python.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
I see what's going on. Also, it's not. It also will be pretty hard to like find a fix for it because it gives you like that notice where Debian 8 is no longer supported. So like they're not gonna
okay.
put out the fix for it. So like we would actually allow like that's why if you expand the show more upgrade types, that's where
Hmm.
if you just move from I'm gonna I just said if you just move, which I know is easy to say and hard to do, but if you are able to move from that 2.7 to any of the three something, you like
Yeah,
considerably lower that attack surface, right? Like, but I
yeah.
get it. Like that's a hard thing to do just because it's a move from like a major version to another one. So there's like a lot of stuff going on.
I mean,
But
don't feel too badly. This is anyway. This is called vulnerable flash gap, so
yeah,
don't worry about that.
for a reason. Wait,
Yeah,
let's go to
it's
your projects. Let's go. Let's see if we can find that sneak code stuff.
yeah. So I have connected it.
So instead of the dashboard, just go to projects on the top right. Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And this, do you know what? Would you remember which you? Yeah, there we go. We have code analysis for a couple of them. Let's see what it finds. Let me put just you
oh
on the.
yeah, it's found the server-side template injection. Yeah, it's found the server-side template injection flaw, which is there. I can confirm it. I created the flaw, so uh, yeah,
Nice.
so
So we
that
did find
works.
something that's
It's a
real.
good finding.
That's
Yes.
positive.
Yeah. It is
Okay.
real. Same with this. Yeah, this is also very real. SQL injection,
Cool.
deserialization. Yes, absolutely real. Insecure hash. Yeah, I mean, obviously MD5 is not is I think it's broken in '98, right? '98. MD5 was '98, something like that.
Brian is calling out that you're doing a really great job in being a vulnerable project, which I
I,
totally
I I
agree.
keep joking to my team. In fact, we do a lot of training, right? So we are more used to writing vulnerable code than secure code now. In fact, we do vulnerable code as a service. In fact, I should patent, I should trademark that term, vulnerable code as a service. Or I think for
Abai,
most of the
don't give
industry,
developers ideas because I'll start talking to them and they'll tell me Abai told me to do vulnerable code as a service and that's what I'm here for. So don't give them ideas.
yeah, I know. We're kind of we're pretty much there. We write so many CTF apps and so many intentionally vulnerable apps that I'm not used to writing secure apps anymore. It's like, oh my God, this is I don't know how to do this anymore. It's just so much like, hey, I need to introduce this bug here or that bug there. So that's
Nice.
something that keeps happening. This one is interesting. Yeah, it's found it, but I don't know why it reported as low. But this is definitely a pretty high severity issue.
What is it? I think
But
I've
it's
never seen this one. Disabled
so this
verification.
is basically you're doing you're decoding a JOT JSON web token, but you're not
Okay.
verifying the signature of the token, which means that it's authentication
Mm.
bypass center, right? You can just submit whatever token you want,
So no integrity
and
certified around this. Got
no,
it.
yeah, this is not surprising though, because a lot of people they kind of club it in with the TLS class of flaws, which is again a CWE 298 or whatever. I don't remember the exact CW, but
We should.
CWE 290. Sorry.
I was gonna say we should do a CWE trivia game.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is a pretty serious issue, which is yeah. I mean, it's founded, which is good, but I think it kind of takes it in with this. A lot of these issues kind of get grouped in together. But I'm sure. I mean, it's found most of the big ones, which is always good.
Are there more?
Uh, I think there are a couple more, but I'm not 100% sure though. There's definitely, yeah, it found the server-side template injection, found the SQL injection. I think there's a cross-site scripting in there as well, but
Hmm.
I don't remember. This is such an old application, I don't remember anymore. But yeah,
Could
there
you open maybe
definitely.
the full details? I want to see if it knows how to take it from like different files for any of them. That's interesting.
Oh yeah, the taint
The
and
flow.
this one taint analysis. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It does. Yeah. So request URL and template render template string. Yeah. No, it clearly does a pretty good job with this. Um, yeah.
This one
So yeah.
flows in the same file though. This is like app.py from what I'm looking at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just one file. It's a Flask application, but Yeah, you're not going to see too much cross-file stuff in this example because this is mostly just So what is
Nice.
the fix? It's kind of interesting. Okay, there's told you to do it this way. They've used a Django example, but nevertheless,
It
yeah,
makes
it's
sense.
Jinja 2. So yeah, it works because it's Jinja 2 because it's the same templating system that works
I'll
both
have to
ways.
share this with the team. This is pretty cool. So like it shows you the actual example of like how to fix it. And by the way, this one has, so I've given the team a few like feedbacks on how like make sure that we are giving the right advice and like finding the right commits. And it has three of
Yeah,
them. Let's go through them. And we haven't like actually prepared this. This is like a whole kind of like last minute
yeah,
thing.
this is kind of just, yeah, this is actually correct. So this is valid. I
Yeah,
think clean data, they've taken some kind of validation here. This is
I love
Django.
this.
This example is a little Django centric, but that's fine. I mean, you can still implement some amount of this with your Flask example as well, which is yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nice.
Yeah, I think this is cool.
This is the
Let's look
last
at the
one.
next one. Um, hmm this doesn't look that great. Let's see. I'm not sure whether icons are depend, blah 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 blah. Yeah, the
You
kind
have
of
to
yeah, yeah.
paste the code.
This is not ideal. This is kind of just like concatenated HTML. This is not super super secure. So definitely don't go beyond Google search page results one. Keep it to page one
Yeah.
or page two.
All
Looks
right,
like
this is good. This is good feedback.
page this is definitely not ideal. Yeah, this is just basically format stringing stuff, not unless they've done a superb job of validation which they don't seem
Yeah.
to have.
Like I
They've just
wonder if
gotten it from
the
Django
LinkedIn.
ORM. I'm sorry.
Now I'm looking at and I wonder if there's like a way to can you open like the entire uh yeah, maybe
This,
okay. So maybe there's like a bigger commit somewhere hidden if you open the whole yeah, I don't know. I
yeah,
wonder if
no,
like
this is
break
actually they've made it worse a little bit. they've, they've added a whole bunch of
a whole bunch of
I
stuff.
think.
Okay.
Yeah, they've added a whole bunch of concatenated HTML. So yeah, the first two were definitely good. I think that made sense.
Nice.
Uh, the last one, not so much. Where was I? Sorry, I think sheesh. Projects and code analysis. Going back there. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, threat level. Yeah. So this is the older version. So let's look at the code analysis for this. Not so bad, actually. I'm surprised to see not too many results in this. Run with debug. Okay, that's a very small thing. That's not,
Hmm.
I mean, this is more, we're going to be running this behind an app server, so it's not so much of an issue.
Are there more
But
improvements
nevertheless,
in this one?
actually, I don't think so. This is a pretty securely written project, so I
Oh,
do say so
nice.
myself. I don't think there are going to be too many issues that you're going to see with this one. But let's look at the this is fair. This is absolutely fair, and I think this is a pretty I think this is pretty standard stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward.
Well, everyone, you're
What
going to hear from Abai. This is secure development as a service, not vulnerable, secure like this one. This is the one. That's how you should go.
Yeah, this is definitely a lot more secure. I'm sure there are maybe a couple of things that I've done there that are not ideal, but I don't think that's anything that's going to be impacting the security of it by too much, is what I think. So yeah, that's where I stand on this. But yeah, this one is of course a horrible project from a security perspective. So I'm not surprised that it found what it found. Looks like there are a bunch of findings with a Docker file here, which is crazy. Again, no fix available seems to be the. This is Node 12, which is not Node 12 is old, but is it that horribly old? I mean, I'm not super. I do write Node, but not as much as you do. But what do
Well,
you think?
Node 16 is gonna go. I think it's already. Did it already start? Like I think that's already like the next LTS. So yeah, like
Okay,
Node 10 is out already, and Node 12 probably. You shouldn't be there.
okay. So yeah, fair enough. So it looks like this is Note 12. So I'm not surprised that it has. Is it unlike the previous one? This doesn't say that Debian 8 does not have active. maintenance, right? So this
Yeah,
Node 12
I
still
think it's
seems to
not
be
Debian 8. No, what is it
no.
based on?
The base image is Node 12.
Yeah, let me see. I don't know actually, like which. It's interesting. Which base image is that? Let's see if I can find that one quickly. I think if it doesn't give you any, trying to
So
look
this
it
is
up.
interesting because you see no fix available and no known exploit is almost the same, and nothing else is there. So literally there are seven mature exploits. So
Yeah.
which means you can just literally ignore this and just patch the seven and you're good to go. Uh, I think at least the way I would interpret that result as. So just take the ones that have some kind of a mature exploit. Of course, I mean the easier way would be just to switch out the Docker container for a newer Node version, probably. But is it
Yeah.
truly that much more secure? Because Node 17 has a whole bunch of flaws by itself, which is
I
strange,
don't
no?
think you want to go to Node 17, but can you scroll down and let's see if the Node version there is vulnerable, like the binary itself. If you scroll, there's like going to be filters on the left that shows you. Oh, yeah. So binaries. Okay. So in this build of the Docker image, or that version at least, which is probably the latest because it's taking the whole tag, at least
Hmm.
Node is not vulnerable. So that's a good
Hmm.
that's a good one for us.
Yeah, yeah.
You scroll up, I think Node 16 didn't have much less vulnerabilities, did it? Oh, it's still
Only
considered
the
200.
slim version seemed to be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Bullseye Slim and the Slim, and the not Buster Slim too. Buster Slim seems to have some critical issues, but I think yeah, the Slim. I mean, if I'm writing production code, for me the thing would be probably use something like distroless from Google, which comes with just the node binary and no package
yeah,
manager. Just I would probably end up using that rather than one of these. This is like prod level code.
yeah,
But yeah, that would be my take on that. But yeah, depends on how you or some of you folks see it.
yeah, yeah. All right, I see
Yeah.
we're
So
getting at the top of the hour, so let's see if we get any more questions and start wrapping it up. Looks like some
yeah,
people are in the chat, and let's leave everyone with some follow-ups and see how it goes. So, oh, we got Brian. This is great.
thank you,
Awesome.
thank you,
Thanks,
thank you.
Brian. And let's see what we have. There we go. Follow up resources. Um, Abhay, do you know this person? It looks like
Yeah, seems
very
seems
much like
familiar.
it's your older self.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, looks like somebody I know.
Version 2020 of Abhay. So you wrote a blog
Yeah,
post back then. I think this
yeah,
year was just when, I don't know, when poetry was just released or official or maybe part of like the sneak kind of like supporting that. But you wrote this whole thing. You were drive testing it or
yeah,
just looking at what's going on there and wrote this blog post. So if you've listened up on the blog, sorry, on the stream here, and want to follow up in details of like how to set up poetry, how to scan it, all the details, Abai really wrote that blog post. Just like recommend reading it. Just Google this or just use this link to see it. What else? So Frank, who's actually, if you like the sneak code stuff for Python, all the secure coding stuff that we've seen on Abai's projects. So Frank is actually writing a lot in that space, and he was part of the team that actually built this sneak code stuff. So he has written this Python security best practices cheat sheet, which I definitely recommend reading and making sure that you're like up to date with whatever's going on there, and hopefully you do not get to install any malicious packages on the ecosystem. I'll maybe leave you off. I think that's one of my last resources I wanted to point out, and that is there's a lot to like do with like secure development, and we try to like cover here with Abai, like giving a lot of tips with like the package management and your which stands for like licenses and some other stuff that you might want to worry about as well if you're like a company or things like that and not just a self indie developer or open source project. But there's that, and there's like the secure practices that we've seen, like sneak code, and there's the container stuff that Abai was just showing us. Like there's like a lot in there, and this kind of gets you started like step by step with all of those. So I mean, there's those to get started with. And Abai, do you have anything else? Any other resources you kind of like wanna share with us?
Um, Yeah, so definitely you can, if you wanna. One of the things that I like to do is probably automate this in GitHub Actions. So if you look at the vulnerable code, vulnerable Flask app on GitHub of ours, you'll actually see some GitHub Actions as well. So I definitely recommend checking that out. If you're interested in threat modeling, check out Threat Playbook. A lot of stuff coming up with github.com/v45/threat playbook. I'm just gonna share the. This is a project that has been pretty close to my heart. I'm just gonna.
You can
I'll
paste
just
it.
paste it on the private chat, and then you can probably broadcast that over.
There you
Yeah. So
go.
this is.
I'll, resource. There you go. What's the there?
Yep.
That one is what is this one? It's like a
Yeah.
threat
This
analysis.
is. Yeah. Yeah. So this is basically. I call this threat modeling as code. So the
Mhm.
idea here is that you're able to codify your threat model using a domain specific language. So, in fact, it used to be YAML, but now I'm kind of making it a lot more like Terraform like, where you can write out your threat model in Terraform like syntax. And you can even convert that back into JSON and YAML and then use that. So, basically, the idea of this is that instead of modeling a system, you model stories, you model a feature. And you can model that feature and you can iteratively model that feature. And later on when you're doing, let's say you're doing SNCC, you're scanning source composition, you're doing static analysis, you can push those results into threat playbook.
Hmm.
So you will also figure out that, hey, you know what, this is your threat model, but based on your scanning results, that threat model actually might come to life. So you can actually map against threat modeling and
Interesting.
vulnerability scanning.
This
So
relates all the way back to your affiliation to graphs, which I remember from the introduction.
yes,
There we go.
very much, very much, very much. Yeah. Yeah, so this is this is in fact that's why I wrote it in the graph database itself because I felt that everything is kind of related, and the way a lot of us don't think in graphs. That I saw somewhere on Twitter that defenders think in list and attacker thinks in graphs. So I think defenders also we need to start thinking in graphs a little bit more. So that's just my 2 cents on that subject.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna send off this follow-up resource to end up with. This is Abai, and you can find him on Twitter and LinkedIn and all of these other platforms probably if you search for it. If you are looking for anything security related, he's like involved in many projects like you've just seen. They are going to release something really cool in December, so follow up on their GitHub and other announcements. There's also like a lot involved on the OWASP, right? Like we're on the OWASP chat and stuff like that. So like
Yeah,
Abba is like
yeah,
all over the place. So go ahead, follow up, follow him, and say hi.
absolutely. Look forward to meeting all of you.
Nice. So I'm gonna end it with this. I'm gonna thank you so much for joining us today, Abai, and showing all the live demos and doing a lot of this like last minute with the sneak code where we're trying a lot of stuff just live.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this.
My pleasure having you. So I'm gonna kick it off and tell everyone who joined us also thanks very much, Freakbag, Brian, everyone else who was on the stream. Thank you so much for joining, and gonna kick it off with this outro video. Bye and stay safe and secure.